Good morning. That is one of the skunks. You see that little bastard? You see that little bastard? I don't know if you can see him behind the tree. Oh, that little son of a bitch. God, I hate skunks. I meant happy Tuesday. Timing is everything, I guess, in life. Luckily, he had his head shoved up looked like it was a plastic cup, so he was unaware. There's a raccoon going down that drain right there. It's wildlife hour out here. I don't care about the raccoons nearly as much as I care about skunks. And I actually don't care about raccoons, although they do knock over garbage cans, and that's a little irritating. Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing how you start to film, and then there's a skunk, and then things change. Van Balen, he posts sovereign citizen videos on his channel. He just put up the raid on Jack's house, Texas Sheepdog 72. And it's interesting the comments that you get on a channel that isn't dedicated to First Amendment activities. It's amazing the public perception of who you guys are and what you guys do. It's pretty negative. They think of you as domestic terrorists, kids. Remember how I've been having these talks now for how long? Saying that you guys probably want to manage your public perception. You guys probably want to not be asshats. Maybe you want to get the public on your side to the point where, you know, maybe they don't consider you to be domestic terrorists. This is the public, obviously, so this isn't like the state saying that you're domestic terrorists. But I wouldn't be terribly surprised if the FBI wasn't watching one or more of these channels, of these auditing channels, to determine if there actually is domestic terrorism involved. That's annoying. So, yeah. It's always good to step out of your bubble every once in a while, like Mike the Cop or Donut Operator, or the other cop channels will cover something that in our community we consider to be activism. In our community we consider it to be, you know, protecting and exercising our First Amendment rights, and in their community they think of it as, you know, being a sovereign citizen or something akin to it, domestic terrorism. And you'll also notice that the cop channels like Mike the Cop and Donut Operator, they're likable. They're likable. They're not going around getting in people's faces, into random members of the public's faces, calling them assholes or getting into shouting matches with them. Well, John, don't you get into shouting matches with Felipe Hemming? Yeah, I do. You got to remember, though, that in those situations, I'm not representing anybody. I'm not representing the auditing community. When I do go out on audits, have I been anything except for polite and nice? When I'm dealing with the public, am I anything except for polite and nice? No. I'm only polite. I am only nice. I mind my P's and Q's because I am representing the First Amendment and auditors in general at that time. So there you go. It's in the short yelling match that I had with Felipe, and I asked him about his interpretation of the post office and the legality of filming in the post office without, or as soon as they tell you you can't, that kind of thing. He still maintained that it was, fully constitutionally protected. And that seems to still be out there in the community, although it doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it was. And I just kind of want to go over it one more time. Poster 7 is not the law. So every time anybody wants to point you at Poster 7, just remember they're pointing you at a poster, not the law. Now, that poster is based on law, and the law says that poster has to be put up, but the actual regulation is 39 CFR 232.1, and the relevant portion of that is subpart I think, or subpart 5I or something. No, it's I, subpart I. There you go. And that's what says that, except where regulations or directives or orders or signs or authorized people tell you not to, except when those happen, then you can film for news purposes. Except when those things say you can't, then you can. And people never seem to grasp that, except for where those things say you can't and those things say you can't. And this community has uncovered the evidence of you can't. The memo that ShadowCam got his hands on, ShadowCam Wisconsin, he got his hands on a memo that says, hey, don't let them film. They don't have the right to film. They don't have the authority to film. They don't get to film. Call the police. The memo that, what's his name? Earl put up, the one that he said was like, oh, hey, the post office is learning. They're saying not to contact you guys. Well, it actually said to report you guys. It said to call the police. That sounds to me like you can't do it. All the evidence indicates you can't do it. There is the law. There are people who have been arrested for filming in post offices. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know which way you want to slice it, they've been popped for just trespass, for state trespass. And that's probably because state cops and district attorneys, as opposed to federal police and U.S. attorneys, are going to be more familiar with and more apt to charge you with state crimes. And I don't even know if I'd have to look at it. I don't even know if a DA can charge you with a federal crime. I think they'd have to work with a U.S. attorney on that. I'm not entirely sure though, so don't quote me. But everything suggests that you can't film in a post office legally unless you get permission. Everything suggests that. The CFR suggests that. Both of the memos that we've uncovered suggest that. The fact that none of the trespassing cases that I am aware of, and if you know one, then of one that has gone differently, then let me know. But none of the trespass cases I am aware of have ever been determined that the trespass was invalid because of the First Amendment. If you know of one, please put a link to it in the comments. I'll be happy to look at it, and I will change my legal analysis based on new information. But to date, there is no indication that you are or should be allowed to film in a post office without getting the permission of the post office. So, there's that. As far as a post office that is that is in a GSA leased area, there are some 38,000 post offices, 38,000 plus post offices in the U.S. 38,000. There are about 9,500 GSA properties. That's 9,500. There are about 4 times as many post offices as there are GSA properties. So everybody who wants to think that the DHS memo, the FPS memo, everybody who wants to say that that applies to a post office has to explain how there are 4 times as many post offices as there are GSA properties, and not every GSA property, in fact, most GSA properties don't house a post office. You got to explain that, because the GSA, they're 41 CFR 102-74.420. That only applies, that's the GSA's regulation. The GSA made that. That's their regulation. It only applies to their properties. And you have to remember that the tenant-owned spaces get to put in their own policies. So no, the DHS memo doesn't apply to post offices. And if a post office is leasing space from the GSA, if they're leasing the whole space, then the whole space constitutes post office property, because they're leasing it, it's their property, and the post office's policies apply. If the post office is renting out or leasing out a portion of the property, like if it's a federal building that has various offices in it, like DHS offices and U.S. Marshals offices and courts and a post office inside there. If it's a mixed use facility, then the GSA regulations will apply in all the public areas, in all the common areas. But once you enter that post office space, even if there's a lobby where you're standing there waiting to get up to the window, that's not a lobby as far as the GSA is concerned for their memo. Their memo concerns the public, the common spaces. The common spaces for the building, for the property. Oh, he's got a stick. And also remember that the FPS memo that this community likes to call the DHS memo, that was written for the FPS, by the FPS. It is an FPS memo. The directive doesn't have a real legal definition. It's a policy memo. Was it signed by a judge? Yes. The order for it was signed by a judge, but it was part of a settlement between the ACLU and the DHS. Can the DHS change their policy? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. They can change their policy without that judge signing off on it. There's no way that the federal government is going to be hamstrung by a judge's decision that's going to bind them in their further rulemaking capabilities. It's the judges have the power of review, judicial review, but they don't have executive power authority, which the DHS is an executive branch, part of the executive branch. And insofar as the DHS makes policy, that would be a reflection of the DHS's desires and the desires of the president and the director of Homeland Security, who don't have to answer to that district court judge or the settlement. If you think that a settlement in a district court is going to lock in the federal branch of government or the executive branch of government into perpetuity, you are sadly mistaken. The settlement was to the DHS agreed to write a memo to educate the FPS portion of their agency. They did so. They have updated it. It seems to be in conformity with my understanding of First Amendment law. They get to do it. They can change it, especially if the GSA revises their regulation, or if new First Amendment case law presents itself, then it will probably be revisited. It's a beautiful morning now that I'm kind of rambled out of the law. Mid-50s. Something about when fall hits. Mid-50s in the summer is delightful. I'd be out here in shorts and a t-shirt. Might be a little chilly, but otherwise fine. The weird thing is, as soon as it's fall, there's a nip in the air. Same temperature, but with a nip. I'm not a meteorologist. I wonder if that has something to do with the amount of moisture in the air or something. Anyway, that's about good enough for today. Thank you very much for watching. Be safe out there. Here's some quick rules of thumb. If you don't want to be arrested, if someone tells you to exit the property, exit the property. Be safe out there. Don't incur any legal bills that you can't pay. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.